we like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
Hey, welcome to the Supernatural Hour. I am your host, Raven.
And I am your co-host, Chad.
If you have listened to us for a while, you know that I have this morbid fascination with mummies. And I mean zero disrespect. To me, the reason mummies are fascinating is because you look at a mummy and you say, that, 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, however old that mummy is, 200, that is a person. They were born, they grew up, they cried, they laughed, they were happy, they were sad, they made plans, they had hopes and dreams. They walked around in this period of time and saw these incredible things, and now I am looking at that actual person.
At their mortal remains.
Not a statue of them, not a picture of them, I'm looking at them. And to me, I don't know, there's just something very surreal about that, and I take it seriously, and I'm respectful. So please don't take any respect in this.
Disrespect. You want to take respect.
Do not think that I am being disrespectful when I talk about mummies, because I think it's fascinating. And I put myself in that position. What if I were a mummy, and 2,000 years from now, people are looking at me going, she had dreams and hopes, and she ranted about traffic, and saw orbs, and never looking at her. Anyway. So one day, a few days ago, Chad was flipping through YouTube channels, as he does, and he found one, and I think the title of this particular one was called Incorruptible, the Bodies That Wouldn't Rot or Don't Rot. And so I watched it, and
she goes, wow, that's a really cool topic.
And so as we were researching for today's podcast, and we pulled up another one, and the title of that one was just a list of Catholic saints that were incorruptible, part 1. I thought, part 1, how many of these people are out there? And we found out something interesting, and I did not know this. Sorry, rustling papers here, I did take notes. So I did not know this, but in order to be, and if you're Catholic or know more about Catholicism, right?
And we messed this up.
What?
And I said, and if we mess this up.
Yeah, if we mess this up, sorry. Okay, we just are taking our information from some videos.
We're giving it our best shot. We're not authorities here.
No. As I understand it, in order to become a saint, at one point they thought it was miraculous.
You had to have so many miracles.
They had to have so many miracles, so many things that happened, but one of these miracles was when they exhume you, which was part of the canonization process. If your body was incorrupt, it's a miracle.
Yep, it made it a miracle, and so that would be one of the 3.
Yeah, you're a saint.
You're a third of the way there.
Yeah, your body is not decomposed. You're obviously a saint. It's a miracle. Isn't that from Life of Brian?
Yep.
And now, because of science and because of some other things, they don't consider it a miracle. They see it as a favorable sign. Right,
because there are other bodies that are incorruptible, like the bodies in the bogs, and
the Bogman, Lennon, and they preserve him very artificially. And then there's the doll girl.
Yeah, I mean they're some of the girls up in the high Andes Mountains that were used as sacrifices with the.
So because of science, they've kind of downgraded
that incorruptibility being a sign of a miracle.
It's more like a kudo. Honorable mention. So, and here's the interesting thing.
Participation trophy?
Yes. So as we were looking through, and we'll give you a list of a bunch of ones that we looked at, but incorruptible means that their body hasn't been artificially tampered with.
Yeah, artificially preserved. And they're still flexible and pliable.
Yes, and so some of them, as they were going through some of these, they were saying, oh, yes, this is incorruptible, no, this isn't. And
did you say this? It doesn't mean that they're perfectly preserved.
They don't need to be perfectly preserved. I mean, you don't need to open it up and it looks like they did when they were 20. But they can, some things that make them nose.
Yeah.
You have to have all your organs there.
Right.
I mean,
So
they can be decomposed. They just can't have been removed.
right. So like mummies, Egyptian mummies, where they would take the organs out to help the body be preserved by not having those organs in there and decompose and start that process.
That would be a preserved body, but it would not be considered incorruptible. They couldn't be saints or have honorable mentions or have these
Right.
beautiful signs. So sometimes when they would exhume these, so as part of the canonization process, your body would be exhumed and examined. And a lot of times these examinations weren't conducted before they were buried because they were so concerned about modesty that they just didn't do a real thorough investigation, like they would now. But as they exhumed some of these people that they were considering for sainthood, they would find that organs had been removed, they'd been stuffed with herbs, things had been done to their skin.
With a certain kind of acid that they would be putting on it to help preserve them.
So they were like, no, that can't be incorruptible.
Which didn't mean they couldn't be a saint. It just meant that the miracle of incorruptibility wouldn't be counted as one of the three miracles.
Right, they had to, it's like, oh, we got to find three other miracles because this is not one of them. So there's one that they talked about, Saint Paula. They dug her up, they exhumed her. Exhumed her is a better phrase.
Oh, dug her up.
There's something wrong with me. Okay, I didn't mean that. When Saint Paula, hang on, I need glasses. I'm old. My mom said my eyesight would start going when I was like 40, and I didn't need glasses till I was like 48, but that was a few years. Okay, and I'm just going to put this out here right now. A lot of these saints are Italian or French, and I'm not going to pronounce them correctly. I'm just going to be honest. I can hardly pronounce normal English words correctly, so I apologize. I will do my very, very best, and I mean zero disrespect when I pronounce this incorrectly. So there's a gal named Saint Paula Francinetti, and they exhumed her 24 years after she had passed. And she looked fantastic, and the nuns looked at her and they thought she looks really, really good, considering how long she had been dead. And they put a carbolic acid on her skin to preserve it. But since they preserved her skin after she was exhumed and examined, they still consider her incorrupt.
Right.
So along these same lines, there was a saint, Saint Julian Emard, and they exhumed him, and they also thought that he looked pretty good, and so they tried to do the same preservation like they did St. Paula, but it destroyed him. I don't know if they used too strong, or if his body composition just couldn't handle it, but they preserved him, and they put this acid on him, and they're like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. And so they took what was left and put it in a wax figurine effigy. Because as we were looking at some of these, the first thing we did was just look at these, incorruptibles. And
yeah, there was a video that it didn't even have any dialogue with it. It was just the names and the dates, and the pictures of them. Raven and I were going through, well, yeah, that's possible. No, that one looks pretty waxy. Oh, that one looks like a mannequin. Oh, that one.
Oh, that totally looks like a mummy, And then we did some more research on it. And if you go, and some of them look like the wax effigy, and you're like, sometimes it's the body inside, and the body will be inside of it. Well, there was one where you look at it and it looks completely waxy. It looks like he just fell asleep. And you're like, that's too good to be real. But actually, underneath the wax effigy is the complete skeleton.
Right, and in fact, there's an episode of Ask a Mortician. I forget Doty. I forget her first name. But anyway, Caitlin Doty. Anyway, she's talking to an expert that does this, and there's a picture of her with, I believe it was this one you're talking about, with the, kind of the wax effigy on the guy on side. And the question to Catherine was, is this incorruptible or not? And, it was obviously, a wax mannequin kind of thing. And she said no, and the girl says, no, it is. And then they actually have a picture of where they dropped it down, and you can see the body underneath, and it's mostly skeleton. But at the time of the finding and the exhumation, it wasn't incorruptible, and since then has deteriorated to the point.
Right, and the expert's name, her name is Elizabeth Harper, and the one that they were talking about is Saint Camillus, and he's in Rome.
Mm-hmm. But it was very interesting, because I didn't know that with the Incorruptibles when we first started looking at this, that sometimes they're effigies, and it doesn't mean that body is still in the same preservation as when they were deemed to be incorruptible.
Right, and when it comes to, you might be asking, well, what is the exact definition of incorruptible? We kind of touched on this a little bit. There's not really a definition, and there's not even really a list. So Caitlin was asking Elizabeth, she's like, so what is the definition, and is there a list? And Elizabeth says, no, there's not a list. There's not really a definition. What they consider to be incorrupt actually came from Pope, and I wrote down Pope Saint Benedict. Is that a real thing, or is it just Pope Benedict? I wrote down the word saint about 800 times before that.
Pope Benedict, I believe.
Anyway, if you're Catholic, I'm really sorry. I'm trying to...
And do you have the date on that? Did you write down the date?
So in 1734, he used the word flexible. And I think since then they added the, no preservatives, no, herbs packed in, no organs removed. You had to be intact. However, that being said, you don't even need to be fully there. Just one part of you has to be intact. For example, Saint Anthony of Padua, when they exhumed him, all of his body had decomposed naturally, but his tongue was intact.
And flexible.
So they considered that the miracle. They considered that incorrupt. And so when you go and visit St. Anthony of Padua, you can see his tongue preserved in a glass topped.
And when you say preserved, just displayed. They haven't preserved it. They've just displayed it.
They took his tongue. It's like zip tied to the back of a glass picture frame.
It's kind of a reliquary. Yeah.
It's just his tongue. Little. In my notes, I wrote "ew."
But that's interesting that was the only body part that didn't decompose, where
it's like, why?
Almost everything else did.
Is it because it was encased within a skull and maybe less moisture? I don't know.
But why wouldn't that be true of lots and lots and lots of other?
Yeah.
It's a miracle. No disrespect.
Yeah, zero disrespect. But just going in and saying, "Hey, look, some dude's tongue." Kind of creepy. So we're just gonna read this list. No comment on list?
No, you got a list. It's not a formal list. You don't have bullet points by it. You didn't print it up and give it to everybody.
Give me crap when I make lists. So.
There's nothing wrong with lists.
Well, then quit making fun of me.
I like... Now, so the difference between bullet lists and numbered lists, you know it?
One has bullets, one has numbers.
But why?
I don't know.
Numbered lists are ordered lists. Sequence is important. This is coming from me as a technical writer. Bullet lists mean that all of the items in the list don't have a prescribed order and don't have to be done in any particular order. So it could be there. So if you were giving you could give a numbered list by year of, sequence of when things had happened, and then you could put those in a number. And you'd probably even use the year as the number, in 1847 and 1849, and put them in order. That would be a numbered list. Now, a bullet list would be just, you put the information out there and it's not important. Not that the information's not important, the sequence is not important. This segment brought to you by Technical Writing Incorporated.
My brain turned to mush about 45 seconds ago.
So she doesn't have a bulleted list or a numbered list, she just has a random list here.
Because, if you guys know at all what Myers-Briggs is, Chad is an ESTJ. I am an INFJ. When it comes to logic, we are on completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Chad's brain is full of all sorts of lists, and mine is just a jumble of unicorn dust and fairies.
But you're the one that makes the lists.
And hurricane.
So anyway, back to your list.
Okay. Here's a list. Okay, so here we go. There is Saint Padre Pio. I'm going to say that name. There's Saint Padre Dio de Pietrelcina. Again, I'm sorry if I mispronounce this. He was born in 1887, died in 1986. He actually looks good. Now, whether these are the actual bodies or the incorruptible body inside the effigy or underneath the effigy, I don't know. So you can look these up yourself and make that decision on your own. If you do know, you can let us, just send us an email, let us know. We can chat about it on another podcast. And there's Saint Camillus de Laius, and he was born in 1550 and died in 1614. He looked pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the legit body. There's the Venerable Maria de Jesus Agunda, and she was 1602 to 1665. She looked good, but a bit waxy, and so my gut feel is they have preserved her after she was incorruptible, or maybe she's encased in or underneath her effigy. But she looked pretty good. There is Saint Bernadette, and I can probably pronounce this right if I could read my handwriting. Cinberius of Lourdes. She was 1844 to 1879, and she looked good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the actual body. It didn't look too waxy, didn't look overly mummified. She looked pretty good. Also, it's not a very old. I mean, she only passed in 1870.
Yeah, it's not like hundreds and hundreds of years old, but that's 100 years is a long time for a body to not decompose.
So there was Saint Alphonsius Liguori from 1696 to 1787. He looked very waxy, kind of bronzed, kind of orange. Now, these are all obviously glass topped or open, cases, boxes, so you can see them. And the fabric behind him was orange. The lighting was kind of orange. So I don't know if
he had kind of a bronzy, goldish hue.
I don't know if it was the light. I don't know if it's something that they preserved him in after the fact. And some of these, because when we were watching the Ask a Mortician, they would show us two bodies, and the expert would say one was incorruptible, one wasn't. So I'm not saying that these are all incorruptibles. These are just all ones they showed us on a video. So if you're interested, you can look these up yourself. St. Vincent de Paul, 1581 to 1660. He looked really good, like he was sleeping. It looked really good, like he was sleeping. So I'm going to guess that the actual incorruptible him is encased or underneath or somewhere else.
That's an effigy representing him, probably. Yeah. Again, too good.
Yes. Saint Cecilia, the patron of musicians. I'm a musician, so she resonates with me.
Resonates. Musician resonates. Come on.
I think that was a statue or a sculpture because it looked very, very statuey.
Yeah. Again, not to say that there's not her body there at the site, but the effigy there was probably not her incorruptible body being displayed.
Right. So I wrote this saint down watching one video, and then when we watched that Ask a Mortician, who kind of talked about this topic, they referenced her again. And towards the end of the Ask a Mortician episode, they did this lightning round of, is it incorruptible or not? So this is Saint Catherine of Bologna. She's sitting, and she, to me, I was like, oh yeah, that's totally her. And it was totally her. I mean, it wasn't, an effigy. She wasn't encased somewhere else. She had kind of your typical mummy look, just dark, kind of withered.
But amazingly preferred for a couple of 100 years old.
Yes, and they didn't give the dates of when she was around. But, definitely, you're like, yeah, that's definitely her body. But they did say, because they would show two side by side, one's incorruptible, one wasn't, they did say that she was not incorruptible. So she's still a saint, she just had to have other miracles. There was something with her body that they deemed
wasn't there like 3 or 4 of the saints women that they had determined that there had been some other preservatives done with them after? Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
but before they were deemed as incorruptible, but like at their burial, either organs removed or something that negated them from the miracle of incorruptibility.
Yeah, and she was one of them.
And it doesn't mean that they still weren't well preserved, but they didn't meet the criteria of being an incorruptible.
The only thing I didn't like about disaster mortician is when they were comparing the two, they didn't tell you why. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why is that one incorruptible and that one not? And it would have been something like maybe she had an organ removed or herb stuck in her or a preservation done on her skin before burial. After burial, it's fine, but before burial.
Now, after the miracle has been announced, after they've been canonized for that miracle.
There's Santa Maria Magdalene del Hazard. I'm so sorry. 1566 to 1607. She also looked. You could tell that was actually her body. It had again kind of that brown mummified look. You know, when you see Egyptian mummies, or the bog mummies, or the Andes preserved, how their skin just kind of turned.
Just tightened in a little brown.
That's how she looked. There's Saint Waldo Gubbio from 1084 to 1160. They have him on kind of high up on a pedestal. I mean, like really high up, like probably 15, 20 feet. Have a really look up.
In a glass case.
Mm-hmm. And he looked pretty legit. He looked pretty almost skeletal. And when I say legit and skeletal, again, this is just to give you
our take on the state of the preservation of his body.
Yes, we're not trying to make fun. But it's like, that's legitimately him. It's not an effigy. That's him.
Yeah, and again, they then showed another close-up of him that was easier, because from the 10 or 15 feet up, it was difficult to tell. You could tell there was a figure form there, but you couldn't see it. But then they showed a close-up of him.
Yep, so we're just going to name off about, 6 or 7 more. Saint Clare of Assisi, 1194 to 1253, had kind of a waxy look to me. There's Saint Esmeralda Eustacia Calcefalo from 1434 1485. I think that one looked like her. I mean, it looked like a legit mummy. And again, we don't know if these are incorruptible or not, but you can look those up. Clare of Montefalco, 1268 to 1308. She was in her habit, and she looked pretty legit. I thought she looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's none of them that were like, except the tongue. The tongue was a little creepy. But the ones that to me looked like legit mummies, I thought they all looked pretty good. I hope that when I've been dead for several hundred years, I look that good. Some of them I'm like, holy cow, I wish I looked that good now. Saint Dominic. I cannot read my handwriting, and I'm not going to. Oh, sorry. Saint Dominic Sario, 1842 to 1857. This one, I didn't care for how they posed this one. This is the one. He could have been well preserved. It could be like a mannequin or a effigy of some sort, but they had him sitting, but his head, it's like they had a pillow under his head, but they took it out, like he was in the process of sitting up and his arms were up, and you couldn't tell if his eyes were opened or closed. I just didn't like the presentation. Yeah,
to me, this one is the one that looked very mannequin-ish.
Yeah, and whether it was actually him or not, I don't know. But if he had just been laying down, I might have said, "Oh yeah, that could just be very well preserved." Because again, it's not very old.
Yeah, that one's 100 years or so.
But 1857. It's more than 100 years.
200, 175.
Yeah, I just didn't like how they had posed him. But if it was legitimately him, he looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
John Benet, patron of priests, 1786 to 1859. He looked pretty legit, pretty lifelike. His head and his hands seemed very well preserved. His body seemed a little a little more, what's the word I want? Shriveled seems really sacrilegious.
Dehydrated.
Dehydrated. But I mean, he's been dead for a while, so that makes sense. But his face and hands look really good. So this is the one, again, we watched this video before we heard all of the, the definitions and everything. So this is Saint Tarsus from 3rd century Rome. And the notes I put were possible, looks statuary, for the age, not sure if it's real, too good, question mark. But now, having watched that Elizabeth Harper.
And the definition of what the incorruptible means in the Catholic Church context.
Exactly. Then I realized, that's probably an effigy of him, and whatever part or parts of him they determine were incorruptible or not are encased inside there or underneath, behind. So that after I watched her...
After we got a little more information and learned a little more about the definitions.
Because I'm looking at him going from 370 Rome, no, that's too good. But now I get it. So see, do your research. St. Charles of Sezzi, he looks pretty good. He was well preserved. He looked like it was legit, not like he was encased in anything. That's 1613 to 1670. And then, not all, and I'm going to say incorruptibles just meaning that their body has been preserved, not the Catholic
version of incorruptible.
But, again, we touched on it. There's Lenin, the bog bodies, Egyptian mummies, there's...
Otzi,
there's the bog people, there's mummies that they're finding all over the place, and to me it's just fascinating. Besides the bodies, you're looking at these bodies of these mummies, of these people that lived, thousands of years ago in the case of the Egyptian mummies, or, just hundreds of years ago in the case of some of these saints. And you think, is their spirit hanging around? Is there some sort of paranormal activity going on around these? And I had a personal experience, and we briefly touched on this if you listened to our Egypt episode. But we were in Egypt in May. I took my Ghost Meter Pro and I took dowsing rods. The thing that I was the most excited to ghost hunt while I was there, and we ghost hunted very briefly. It was not a ghost hunting trip, but I really, really wanted to go to the museum in Cairo, ghost hunt with the dowsing rods, the mummies.
Mm-hmm.
I was so excited to go do that. But as soon as I got to where the mummies were, I just had this overwhelming feeling of, don't. We have millions of people just come and stare at us.
Literally millions of people.
There was probably 1 million people when we were there.
Well, not quite when we were there, but over the course of the years, it's millions. I mean, King Tut's tomb's there. Or, not tomb, but his artifacts and remains.
But I just had this overwhelming feeling of, no. Just don't. And so I said, okay. And I put the dowsing rods away and I just stood there and stared at them.
Watched and read.
And, Chad's going around looking at other things, and I was like, yeah, I'm seeing mummies. I'm happy. But we did look up, are there any paranormal things that go on around
the Incorruptibles?
The Incorruptibles, the Catholic saint Incorruptibles. And there wasn't really a whole lot, but there were several pictures of orbs, strange mists, some shadows that couldn't be explained. There was one we couldn't quite tell because it didn't give us much information, but it looked like someone was visiting one of them and they got a bite mark on their arm, which to me is credible, because I'm sure that whether their spirit is with them or whether it just brings in other spirits that mimic them and try to pretend to be them, there's going to be some sort of activity around those bodies, in my opinion.
Well, there's a lot of energy. I mean, a lot of living human energy, a lot of interest, a lot of faith. So there's
energy from the body itself and energy of those that have come to pay their respects and homage to that particular saint.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So is that it for our Incorruptibles?
Yes, and now I've seen Egyptian mummies. I still have to go back to Egypt to see the royal mummies because when we were there, if you don't know, there's the museum in Cairo.
Which is called the Cairo Museum.
Yes. That you see in all the movies and everything. But when we were there, they were just finishing this great big new museum that was just by the pyramids.
Yeah, out on the Gaza Strip.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's open now.
Yeah.
So I need to go back there. But when we were at the Cairo Museum, they actually had the royal mummy exhibit closed because I think they were in the process of moving them from the one
Museum
to the other. And I was very, very sad because that's who I wanted to see. It's like, seriously, the day that I'm here, it's closed. So I got to go back to see the royal mummies. But now, I kind of want to go see some of these Incorruptibles.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's.
I need to go to Italy.
I'm gonna say that's like a European trip. Italy, France.
Okay, someday.
So, let's touch just a little bit on the non-Catholic Incorruptibles. And you did Lemon, the girl. What was her name? I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of people. The bog people that they find, all of those kinds of things. And again, they're not the Catholic Incorruptibles. And I think a lot of people, when they're learning about this, they don't understand that difference. That just because a body is well preserved doesn't mean it's an incorruptible by the Catholic definition. So I thought that was very interesting. And with the preservation and the embalming techniques and the things that we do modern day, a lot of bodies actually can be quite well preserved for quite a while after death. And when they do exhumations, exhume, for criminal cases or those kinds of things, oftentimes the bodies are still in remarkably good shape. It's quite amazing.
This is everything we've been talking about has been brought to you by Castle Photo Art, Oteo's, the Hub Theater.
Yep.
We forgot to join the show-outs.
We got Castellan originally. We're going to get to the others. Yep. I did that for the business.
I thought we forgot them, so I'm just going to shout out. And by the time you hear this, Christmas will have been over for 3 days. And if you didn't get your Supernatural Hour swag for Christmas that you were hoping for, you can still just go and buy it yourself.
Yep.
And if you buy something and then send me an email, I will call and sing jingle bells to you. Very poorly. I play instruments because I sing very, very poorly. So, in fact, I have to tell you, the choir director in my church at one point sent me a text, and she said, "I've heard you sing in church, and your voice is so lovely. We need you in choir." And I thought, you know what? I just love you. You are a fantastic person. But you've never sat by me and heard me sing, because if you did, you would never have said that I had a beautiful voice, because I do not. So there's that. Anyhow.
So you can get the swag at advancedparanormal.com. So go out there and get your Supernatural Hour swag stuff.
There's a lot of fun stuff.
Oils, stones, stuff like that too.
Okay.
We encourage you to go out and become a patron for Supernatural Hour at Advanced Paranormal. We've got a number of patrons. Give a shout out to all of them. We appreciate their help in bringing these podcasts to you literally through the funding of our websites and our SSL certificates and all of the things that we're doing there and the equipment and everything else. So we're very appreciative to our patrons.
And just a little thing about patrons, they get stuff. We just sent out a really cool swag. So New Year's is coming up, and in the new year, we're going to start, like we mentioned before, our new events coming up about every 6 weeks. We'll start looking forward and planning our patron picnic that we have in the summer, and that is a ton of fun. That is probably one of my favorite things that we do.
Yeah, really low key. You get to bring some friends with you. It's no cost for patrons, and there's different levels of patronage. You get to bring so many people with you. And
it is potluck. I mean, we would ask you to bring.
We bring the main dish, and
we bring main dish drinks. You just have to bring a side.
And it's always a lot of fun. And
the food is fantastic.
Yeah.
But not once have I been like, everything's good but that dish. Well, maybe mine, but
yours?
Good
yeah.
One that I brought.
Yours is the Chick-fil-A. No, that's pretty fantastic
Oh, if
too.
I were to bring a side. No, Chick-fil-A is fantastic.
So
Anyway, all right.
we also have YouTube. YouTube, we're up to 313 subscribers. If you're not already subscribed, go out to youtube.com/Advanced Paranormal and subscribe for us. And TikTok, we've got over 2,215 subscribers now.
I haven't looked lately.
I know, I did.
Because my heart has been full of Arabic.
Yep.
Which I haven't got my grade on, but I think I passed.
Oh, good. I'm very proud of you.
Okay.
So now you can give
Yeah,
your
we're
close. Well, I'm done.
Stay spooky, my haunted friends.
Hey, have a good night.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright by Advanced Paranormal Services.